They never meant to dive into a drowned town. Ivy had just hit 28, and Carter had just quit his job at a burned-out video production company in Atlanta. Two friends with too many failed projects behind them, betting everything on one last shot. They loaded their gear, drones, waterproof cameras, LED rigs, old GoPros with cracked casings, into Carter's rust-red Tacoma, determined to chase something real. Something that would scare people the way they'd always wanted. For weeks they scoured obscure online forums, Reddit threads, abandoned newspaper archives. The article that changed everything came from an old Georgia Highway Historical Society's blog, updated once every 3 years. Stillwater, Georgia, the town that drowned itself. A planned reservoir project in 1961. A town of 211 people. No records of relocation. No formal evacuation. Just gone. The dam was built, the town flooded, and no one ever claimed to know where the residents went. But what hooked them was the photograph. A blurred, black and white aerial shot of a sunken structure poking just above the surface of a fog-covered lake. A roof. A gabled one. Beneath it, a house. Maybe more. Maybe an entire neighborhood. The image was labeled simply, taken during drought year, 1989. House visible for 6 days before submerging again. Ivy zoomed in on the roof. Something about the shape disturbed her. The angles weren't right. Carter said it looked like a house trying to remember how to be a house, like it had been built from memory by someone who'd never actually seen one. They were hooked. The town of Stillwater wasn't on any map. But the lake was. Lake Lorne, just off Route 229, south of an abandoned quarry, was listed only as a flood control reservoir. No tourism. No trails. No campsites. Locals avoided it. Google Earth showed only thick green canopies and brown water. But zoom in far enough and you'd see the faint outline of roads that ended in the lake. They arrived on a Sunday. The air was heavy with humidity and buzzing with unseen insects. The locals at the gas station wouldn't speak to them. One old man, hunched behind the register with nicotine-stained fingers, only muttered, "Don't go messin' with what's buried wet." Carter laughed that off. They parked near a rusted gate, hiked a mile through woods that grew quieter the deeper they went. No birds. No squirrels. Only stillness. And then they saw it. Lake Lorne. A flat, brown sheet of water. No waves. No current. No reflection. Just still. Ivy felt her skin prickle. The air grew colder near the edge. They set up base camp under a patch of dead trees. Carter launched the drone. Ivy calibrated the sonar. The lake was deeper than expected, over 40 feet in some parts. But then, toward the center, something pinged back. A shape. Rectangular. Vertical. They planned the dive for the next day. That night, Ivy couldn't sleep. The tent felt too tight, the air too thick. Outside, something was dripping. But it hadn't rained. She stepped out and turned on her headlamp. The trees were bleeding. Thin, crimson rivulets leaked from their bark. She touched one. It smelled like rust and rot. The light flickered. A sound, like whispers, drifted across the water. She spun toward the lake. For just a second, she saw something standing at the shoreline. A silhouette. Wearing something old-fashioned. Watching. Then it vanished. She woke up Carter, but the bleeding was gone. The trees were dry. He said she was just tired, probably dehydrated. But the next morning, they found something half buried near the lake's edge. A backpack. Old. Mold-covered. Inside, a child's drawing. Stick figures holding hands in front of a crooked house. The sun above had a face. And it was screaming. In the corner of the drawing, in shaky pencil, "We live under the water now." Ivy looked at Carter. "What the hell is this place?" He didn't answer. He was staring at the lake, where the tip of a gabled roof had broken the surface overnight. The house was real. By midday, the sun sat heavy and white in the sky, bleaching everything into a pale yellow. Ivy double-checked the dive gear while Carter unpacked the underwater housing. The structure had emerged just 20 feet from shore, so close Ivy could see the lake water ripple subtly around its black shingles. But here's what was wrong: there was no drought. The lake level hadn't dropped. The roof had risen. They slipped into wetsuits. Ivy went first. The plan was a quick 30-minute reconnaissance dive, marking anything with high-vis tape and tagging coordinates. Nothing too deep. Nothing dangerous. Carter held the camera steady while Ivy descended. The water was murky, thick like syrup. Visibility dropped fast. She kept her flashlight pointed forward, careful to keep breathing slow and measured. Then the house came into view. It wasn't just one. It was an entire cul-de-sac. 6 houses, maybe more, arranged in a perfect crescent around a sunken roundabout. Driveways still intact. Mailboxes grown over with algae. A tricycle rusting mid-sidewalk. She exhaled a stream of bubbles. The houses weren't decayed. They were preserved. Paint unpeeled. Wood unsplit. Curtains still hanging in the windows. One house had a porch swing that gently swayed as if moved by invisible hands. She shined her light into one of the windows. Something moved inside. Her radio crackled. Carter's voice: "Ivy. Come up. Now." "What is it?" "Just get out. Please." She surfaced. He was pale. Shaking. He held up the drone controller. The live feed showed the roof they'd seen, yes, but behind it, surfacing now, was the second house. And it was identical. Same roof. Same gable. Same sagging chimney. A perfect replica. Then a third appeared. "They're not surfacing," Ivy whispered. Carter turned slowly to her. "They're coming up to us." That night, they argued whether to leave. Ivy wanted to go. Carter refused. "You saw it. This is it. The real deal. If we leave, no one will believe us." "What if we're not supposed to believe it?" Carter chuckled, humorless. "Ghost towns don't replicate." "Ivy, something's moving them." She stared out at the lake. There were now 5 rooftops. All the same. All watching. That night, the whispers returned. Louder. Ivy recorded them, played the clip back. What she heard chilled her to her core. "We didn't drown, we were pulled under, the water remembers, don't turn around, don't turn around." She stopped the tape. Turned around. Nothing there. Except a single, wet footprint. Inside the tent. They didn't speak the next morning. Carter barely touched his protein bar. Ivy sat with the recorder in her hand, staring at the single wet footprint on the nylon floor of their tent. Neither of them had been barefoot. Neither had left the tent in hours. The print was small, too small to be either of theirs. It looked like a child's. She checked the footage again. The drone. The GoPros. The underwater cam. Every camera angle showed the rooftops rising, yes. But there was something else, something Carter had missed. A shape. Between houses. Sometimes crouched low, sometimes standing. It moved when the cameras flickered. The footage warped when it passed near. No features. Just a dark, dripping outline. Almost human. Except it wasn't. "I think something's down there with them," Ivy said. Carter didn't answer. He was staring at the lake again, jaw slack, lips dry. There were now 7 rooftops. Still identical. Still too perfect. Still getting closer. By noon, Ivy made a decision. "If we're staying, I'm going down again. I need to see it up close." Inside. Carter looked like he wanted to argue, but said nothing. Instead, he helped her rig the new camera, a waterproof shoulder cam with IR filters. The descent this time was slower. Heavier. She followed the familiar route, past the porch swing, past the mailbox with no name. Toward the house they'd marked before. Inside, it was like the water didn't exist. Curtains drifted as if caught in a breeze. The front door swung inward with a creak, though no sound should carry underwater. She entered. Hallway. Stairs. A small living room with plastic-covered furniture. A dusty TV. A hallway mirror. She caught a glimpse of herself. Then the reflection blinked. She hadn't. She jerked back, flashlight flailing. Something ran across the hallway behind her. She spun. Nothing. But on the wall, where mold had once coated the wallpaper, were new words, scratched into the plaster. "We never left." She turned back to the mirror. Now the reflection was smiling. And it had too many teeth. Ivy surfaced screaming. Pulled her regulator out mid-sentence. Carter grabbed her, dragged her onto the shore. She was shaking so badly she dropped the camera. "I saw them," she whispered. "Inside. Watching." That night, they packed. Argued. Screamed. They were leaving. At dawn. Carter said he needed one more shot. One last drone sweep. "We document it. Then we go." Ivy agreed. He launched the drone, manually flying it over the rooftops. But halfway across the lake, the signal cut out. Static. Then. A brief image. One eye. Enormous. Black. The feed died. Ivy turned to Carter. But he was gone. Only his shoes remained, neatly placed at the edge of the lake. No ripples. No bubbles. Just stillness. Then she saw it. Another house rising. An 8th rooftop. Ivy stood frozen, eyes locked on the 8th rooftop emerging from the dark water. Her heart hammered so loudly it felt like it echoed across the entire lake. Where was Carter? His screams were gone, only silence pressed on her like a heavy, suffocating weight. She began gathering their gear, but then felt a cold breath on her neck. She spun around. No one. Only a raspy whisper flowing from the darkness. "Don't go, we've been waiting for you." The voice was childlike, but it seemed to come from many, an unearthly chorus of disembodied voices. Summoning every ounce of courage, Ivy grabbed the camera. No longer an explorer, but a person fighting for survival. She stepped toward the water, dipping a trembling hand in. The water was icy, unnervingly alive. She stared at the surface. Suddenly, the water rippled and cracked, as if something below was desperate to break free. And then she saw them. Figures, pale, half-transparent, hollow-eyed, slowly rising from beneath the surface. silent and sinister. Ivy stepped back, but her foot snagged on thick underwater weeds. She fell. The water began to drag her down. The voices whispered, "Join us, never swim upward." Underwater, Ivy saw countless houses, some collapsed, twisted, burned. But one stood whole, bright, alive. A window was open. Inside sat Carter. His face was changed, skin pale, eyes black and bottomless. He reached out. "Help us." The world spun. Everything around her twisted and blurred. The lake deepened, darkened, as if it was a gateway to another realm. She struggled to break free, but the water's grip was too strong. At the last second, she tore herself upward, breaking through the cold, suffocating surface. But when she surfaced, she found herself standing, not on a shore, but on the lake bed itself. The air smelled of decay and rot. Around her, the drowned town stretched out, streets cracked and sunken, houses half buried in mud and silt. And then she realized the sunken town wasn't underwater anymore. It was alive. The drowned people, specters with hollow eyes and broken smiles, emerged from every shadow. Their whispered voices crawling into her mind. "You belong here now." Her skin prickled as she tried to move, but invisible chains wrapped tight around her ankles. Carter appeared beside her, his face a haunting mask of sorrow and madness. "We never left. And now, neither will you." The water rose rapidly, swallowing the town whole. Ivy screamed, but no sound escaped. The last thing she saw was Carter's face morphing into a twisted grin, too wide, too sharp, eyes glowing in unholy black. And then the water closed over her head. No one ever found Ivy or Carter. Just their equipment, drones, cameras, and the child's drawing, washed up on the shore months later, stained with something dark and sticky. In the corner of the drawing, in shaky pencil, "We live under the water now."